Welcome in to another episode of the Real Wisdom Podcast, where every week I take a deep dive into the trenches of the film and television industries. I am your host, Derek Diamond. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, happy Halloween. And I thought for this episode, because the show happened to fall on Halloween, that I'd bring back an old favorite from the Derek Diamond Experience days, and that would be the Roundtable discussions, where I invite friends on and we just talk about a movie, a franchise, whatever the case may be. So obviously, I couldn't do this show alone, and joining me are three of my favorite people to talk movies with. First up, we have my co-host over at the Nerd Cave Retro podcast and the co-writer of Monsters Anonymous, Mr. Jason Robbins. How are you?
Ooh, happy Halloween, everyone.
I'm surprised you didn't break out into some Silver Shamrock.
Yeah. Look at Joey's
don't want
face.
you
As Joey
losing.
leaves the call. Also joining us, the other co-writer of Monsters Anonymous, Mr. Wally Phelps. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. And also rounding out the roundtable discussion is former pro wrestler and fellow horror movie fanatic, Mr. Joey Image. Joey, how are you?
What's up, y'all? That Silver Shamrock thing was stuck in my head for like 2 days last week after I think Jay mentioned it in the text message maybe. Or sent a video or something. It was so stuck. Now it's going to be there again.
It does that. And then a couple of days later, I'll hear it again. And then it's going to be like...
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Halloween 3. You can go back in the archives
Thankfully.
of the Derek Diamond Experience to check that out. We're going to be talking about what is actually my favorite horror movie of all time. And we're going to touch on the sequels, but mostly we're going to talk about the first one. And that would be Scream, which was released not around Halloween time. It was released in December of 1996, December 20th to be exact. So
Merry
it
Christmas.
but what better way to spend Christmas than watching people get slaughtered?
I never realized that, and there's nothing Christmas related at all anywhere in the movie.
I feel like they missed out on an opportunity.
Yeah.
They should do that because they're working on Scream 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Release that around Christmas and make it set at Christmas.
Release it on
time.
Christmas Day.
Well, Terrifier 3 kind of beat them to it. So, if they did.
Well, those are two
that.
different types of movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would watch a Christmas-themed Scream movie. You imagine, he's wearing like, you could have like a red robe instead of black, and like the mask could be like like a candy cane or something.
And the red thing has got white trim all around it.
Yeah.
We should just write it.
Wally. Look at Wally's. I love it when I make Wally just.
I think the long chin could be like a candy cane, like the curl part would be at the bottom, so it comes down and curls up.
He could put a Santa beard on the chin. Dude, that would be great.
What do you want for Christmas?
Sydney, what do you want for Christmas?
Somebody could get the Ghostface mask as a gift for Christmas. That guy puts it on,
Ooh.
and then suddenly he's possessed like a maniac, and that guy kills everybody. It's just
So
not obvious.
as I mentioned, the movie came out in 1996. I was not introduced to this movie until 2018. Funny enough, after on Nerd Cave Retro, we recorded a couple of episodes based on the Halloween movies, and I was just getting into horror at the time. And I remember we wrapped the show kind of early in the day, and I saw Scream was available to watch, and you guys recommended it. And after I watched it, it became my favorite horror movie of all time. Because growing up in the 90s, I'm a sucker for that kind of time frame, that culture.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell that it's very much set in the 90s. But
yeah.
I want to ask you guys, because you can remember better than I can the hype that was around this movie and how well it was received. So, Joey, let's start with you. What do you remember about this movie coming out and kind of the anticipation for it?
Well, I could tell you this. I saw this movie the day it came out, which was a Friday, and I saw it again that Sunday. So 2 days later in theaters both times. Plex didn't exist at the time, so I had to go back to the theater to watch it. But I've actually seen every Scream movie on opening night. I'm like, I don't know if the word's a purist, but I'm a super fan of the whole series. But I remember, so at the time we all thought Drew Barrymore was the main event. right? Nobody knew that she wasn't, I guess. We're gonna have spoilers anyway, but nobody knew that she wasn't really the big deal. So when
that was kind of her comeback too, because she wasn't really around for a while before.
No, yeah, right. So it was myself and my girlfriend Heather at the time. Actually, I don't even think she was my girlfriend at the time. This may have been her first date. Now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, we went to see it on that Friday, and I was like, dude, that movie was awesome. And she's like, I can't wait to see Drew Barrymore. I can't wait to see Drew Barrymore. And then, 10 minutes into it, she's like, oh, I guess I'm ready to go home now. But man, I remember just like my whole little group of friends, me, her, and our little group that we hung out with, everyone was like hyped for this. And a lot of like the girlfriends in our group were all because of the Drew Barrymore appearance, which we didn't know at the time was an appearance. I thought it would be a whole long... I thought she would be a long-lasting character until the first 7 minutes or whatever. But man, I like I said, I saw it on that Friday when it came out. I saw it again 2 days later on Sunday when it came out. I did the same thing with Scream 4. I saw it, like I said, I've seen all of them on opening night, but Scream 4, the newest one, the maybe not the newest. Was the newest one just Scream, or was that the previous?
That was the previous one.
Okay, so that one. 1 and the original and 4 I saw both on the Friday that it came out and the Sunday that it became like a tradition. But yeah, like I said, a lot of people were hyped in my little friend group at the time because of Drew Barrymore, and then that deflated quickly. But I still obviously loved it. I still love the series. I still watch it all the time. At least once a year I do just a run through of all of them.
What about you, Wally?
Well, I was a teen. I was 15 at the time that the movie came out. And what happened is I remember at that time I was watching a lot of E! Entertainment. I was the same way I am now, but we didn't have any internet. So I was watching all the trailers and things like that on shows dedicated to showing trailers on television that you had to actually watch.
Yeah.
And I would see interviews with Drew Barrymore and Wes Craven, and talking about how this is the big return of Wes Craven and Drew Barrymore. And, like Joey said, everyone thought that Drew Barrymore was the lead in this film until it came out. And then everyone's like, you will not believe what happens in the first 10 minutes of this movie.
I think lead is the word I was looking for, but the wrestler in me just threw out main event. But you know
right.
What I mean.
That's oh man, imagine a Scream movie in the wrestling world. But that's
setting.
We'll get that. We'll get to that later. But yeah, that's what I remember from it.
I'm surprised nobody has come out wearing a ghost face mask in wrestling.
But you know what? That
as part of their entrance.
I remember at the time, whenever I first saw the pictures of the killer and everything, because it was part of the marketing and whatnot. I remember seeing those costumes before the movie came out, years, and it was always the crappy costume that your mom would get you because it was $10 at Walmart that no one wanted it.
Yeah, and then it blew up.
Right, and this movie made it something. And
when this movie released on VHS, I was still working at the video store, and we got 3 or 4 of them as some kind of giveaways we did, and I was so mad that I never got to keep one. All I got was the mask, and I never got the whole gown or whatever the hell it was, and that's all I got was this thing. But obviously I still have it, so it meant something to me.
The first time I watched it was on video. My brother rented it. He was a huge horror movie fan at the time, and I was not. And I watched it with him, and I was enthralled by it, so much so that when I went to the Dollar Theater, Surfside in this particular instance, I went to the movies to see it with someone. It's like, you're going to love this movie. This is going to be great.
What about you, Jason?
I actually missed this movie when it was in the theater. I didn't actually see it until it came out on video. But I remember the hype around it. I don't know why I didn't see it in the theater. And then I remember the weekend it came out for rental. Me and my buddy Josh, who was my best friend in high school, we went and rented it and ended up watching it 3 times in a row. because we loved it so much. And then I think it was that weekend, or maybe the weekend after or something, I went and actually bought it on VHS like immediately because I loved it so much. And then speaking of the mask, that Halloween, it was like the Scream mask was like the thing to get. And I went and bought one. That was going to be my costume for that year. And I was working at a restaurant, that actually one of the restaurants that me and Wally met each other at, not that particular restaurant, but a different one under the same
that one wasn't
name.
open yet.
But I had the Scream mask, and one of the guys at work was like, okay, get that mask, because I had it in my car. He's like, go get your mask, go out to the dumpster. And like, there's a, between the building and the dumpster.
Where is this going?
Wait, he's like, I'm gonna grab the manager, and we're gonna bring the garbage out, and you jump out and scare the crap out of him. I was like, all right. So I'm out there and I'm waiting, and I'm like in the dark, in between the dumpster and the building, and they come out there, and they get like right at the edge of the building, and I jump out and scream, and I'm like, ah! And the boss had one of those, those bag-on-box Coke boxes. If you ever worked at a restaurant or anything, real thick, heavy cardboard. He had one of those in his hand, and he swung it as hard as he could, hit me in the head, completely turned the mask like around, and I just hit the ground. Like I saw birds flying around my head. So hard.
I thought you were going to say they never came out. I was waiting there all night.
So that was the last time I ever scared anyone on purpose.
I love that story.
Yeah, I've never heard that story before. That's incredible.
That was one of the hardest I've ever been hit in the head in my life, was with that.
That's shocking.
Being scared does something to people's adrenaline. That's all I can say.
You know how there's some people, like their fight or flight response, some people will scream and run, and some people will throw punches. He was one of the throw punches people. Like, he got scared and just immediately just hit me with that box.
That's incredible. Yeah, I was with Joey. I thought you were going to be like, well, I waited till like 1 o'clock in the morning. And
they never came.
Standing out there with a ghost face mask on.
He's kind of wish
that would have been equally as funny, by the way.
From the dumpster.
That would have been equally as funny for me, at least. Years. Yeah, I'm still here.
And in another universe, that version of Jason is still sitting by that dumpster.
It'll be in.
If this were a movie, we'd cut to the post-credit scene, and you'd still be standing
like
by the dumpster.
It's like that scene in Futurama where the dog's outside and the storefronts change, and
we can make a Twitter, like a sister Twitter, to Michael Myers and the drain pipe to Jay by the Ghostface Jay at the dumpster. Dumpster Jay.
It actually does. It kind of reminds me of the movie whenever those teenagers get the Ghostface outfit and they're running through the school and scaring everybody.
Yeah.
And then Henry Winkler, of all people, as the principal. I love his role in that.
One of my notes I wrote down was where'd it go? Oh, come on. Oh, I love seeing Fonzie wearing the Ghostface mask. Hey, you know what? There's an interesting we're getting, I don't know how chronologically you want to go, but there's an Easter egg that I don't know if it's an Easter egg, but I just noticed this today when I was watching it for the first time. When he's in the office yelling at the two kids that pulled the prank, Billy Loomis and what's her name go upstairs,
Sydney.
Yeah. You see him looking at me back there? He just poked his head in the room.
Shout out to Buddy.
It was really creepy for a second. I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah, when they go upstairs to talk, Billy Loomis is wearing the same outfit as the kid on the left side of the screen in that office scene. I don't know if that means anything or what. Same shirt, same pants, same everything. It was so weird. So in my mind, he killed that kid at the party, but who knows?
I did not know that. Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that means anything or if that was like an intended Easter egg. There he is.
Oh, there's Buddy.
But now I can't see the mask, so.
Shout out to Buddy. Yeah, and this movie is full of Easter eggs, and I was kind of trying to do the same thing, and watching it earlier today. We talk about the Drew Barrymore scene where she gets killed. When her parents come home, I can't remember the name of the family, but they're like, "Oh, we should go over to the so-and-so's
Mackenzie's.
house." Mackenzie's.
From Halloween
the
1.
same family from Halloween.
It was almost the same line. It was go down the street to the Mackenzie's house. It was almost word for word.
Yeah. And something interesting too, and I wanted to bring this up to you guys.
Delete that note.
I was gonna wait till a little bit later, but in the fact that this movie was released in the 90s, and I think it came out around the perfect time, because we've talked about like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, like the earlier versions that are iconic. A lot of those sequels are not good. Like they're pretty bad.
Yeah, like Halloween 3. Coincidentally, Scream 3 is the worst of the whole series.
Yeah, that's one that if I miss it every Halloween,
that's one where, like, when I rewatch it during my yearly, like, what do you call it? Not playthrough, but watch along with the whole series. That's one where, like, if I have to leave the room, go to the bathroom, get a snack, whatever, I won't pause it. I'll just let it play. Yeah. All the other ones I have to pause it.
If this movie were released in 2024, do you think it would have the same impact?
Oh man, it would be so different.
I mean, yes.
If it was released if it said in the beginning, like, takes place in 1996 or something like that, then maybe.
Well, I think that I don't think they would even have to identify it as such, but it'd be like one of those things where, like Stranger Things, where they don't really tell you that it's in the 80s. They just show you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think Scream is 90s enough to basically say, hey, this is the 90s,
I like that. I like that Sidney Prescott had the Doogie Howser computer set up with the 911 number right on it.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
The TT.
Yeah, actually, if once you see that and you release it in 2024, everyone's like, "What is this from the 70s?" Like kids today or teenagers are like, "What? Look at that computer. What is this from the 1960s?"
Yeah, but the thing is Scream was a satire of the horror films that came before it, and
right.
If it came out today, because it's the movie that informed all the horror movies that came afterwards. So without Scream, we wouldn't have the movies that are out there to, that we've had since then. Like
we might not have Pinocchio's Revenge without Scream.
Yeah, Pinocchio's Revenge. But
I'm gonna get you guys to watch that at some point.
Would it still have the impact if it had came out today instead of the 90s? Maybe.
Who's the biggest female movie star today? Like, and you take whoever that is and replace Drew Barrymore with her. Who?
It would
probably Sydney Sweeney.
I don't even know who that is. That's how big she is.
No, she was in what was that? Euphoria, and she's been in she was in a horror movie that just came out not too long ago called Immaculate.
Right. She's in a bunch of movies that are not targeted to our demographic.
But still, I mean, she's really freaking famous. So
I don't even recognize anybody. Her, dude.
It would probably be her.
She was born a year after this movie came out. That's insane. Yeah. Wow. I don't even recognize her. But you take her and you put her in Drew Barrymore's place, then it would be big today.
Oh, that would be an interesting idea.
I don't recognize her at all. And she was born in 97. My Lord.
I think the Sydney part would have to be played by somebody like, I don't know.
Some newer person.
Somebody
who's famous on TV.
Fred Willard?
Yeah, Fred Willard.
Rest in peace.
Well, yeah.
R.I.P. Fred Willard.
Our final girl in our hearts.
Yeah, that.
Could you see, like,
put it on a shirt?
So I would love to remake it with different gendered people like that, but I would use as the Ghostface voice. I would use Ray Romano's regular voice. Yeah. What's your favorite scary movie?
I was thinking Jerry Seinfeld. What's the deal with the scary movies?
Did you find the witch scary?
Jason brings up a good point. A lot of it had to do with the time frame, because a lot of the horror movies were looked at as being, like campy and kind of a joke. And even though it was meant to be a satire,
right?
But the campiness reinvented the genre.
The campiness in this movie and the campiness in the kind of goofy comedy at some points was intentional, which made it to me so much better.
Well, because you like Ghostface isn't like Michael Myers where he's
Right.
just practically invincible. Like
Right.
he gets kicked in the nuts, he gets knocked down, he
Yeah.
trips.
I think the big not reveal, but the big sticking point for me, at least in this, was that we didn't know till the end that there was two separate killers. So
Right,
it was like you said, it wasn't like it almost looked like Supernatural, because she would kick him in the nuts and then 2 seconds later he'd be behind her again, and then later you realize, oh crap, that's because there's two of them. So it almost had that element, but then you realize why, and it almost could be realistic.
And that's the thing that got me about the movies, is that these are things that could happen because there really are crazy people who want to kill people.
No,
So, I mean, they don't put on a Ghostface outfit, but they could if they wanted to.
And also the brilliance of Wes Craven too, the way he made the movie, is he put all the Easter eggs that made the movie ultimately so rewatchable, is because you can watch it, not pick up all the clues, and then you immediately want to watch the movie again so that you can pick up all the clues on the way to the end. And I've seen Scream probably 20 times by now at least, and I still see new stuff every time I watch it. I pick up something new.
Yeah, like that thing I mentioned before that I said I didn't notice it until I watched it today. I never noticed it before, and I don't know if it means anything, if it's an Easter egg, or maybe their what do you call it? Their budget was low for costuming, so they only just put on this shirt this other guy wore in the other scene. No one will notice except this one idiot in Jersey. He'll notice it in 30 years.
Another thing I really like about these movies is that it's not only a horror movie, but it's a whodunit. And I love a good whodunit, like Clue or the Knives Out series.
I have to watch that. There was one scene in this movie where, so when I'm in the theater, when I'm going to watch this with my ex, my girlfriend at the time, I'm thinking like, I know it's going to be like a whodunit, and I'm going to look at every single detail in every single scene, and I'm going to pick it out before anybody else, because I have to be first, some ridiculous reason. I'm not going to yell it out in the theater because I don't want to spoil it, but I need to figure it out. So the scene where they're outside eating after the first two are killed, and what's his name, Stu, says like, I didn't kill anybody, and Billy's like, nobody said you did, and he gives him that look right there. I'm like, oh, Billy's one of the killers. It seemed way too obvious. And then when they pan out, they're the only two wearing the black boots that Ghostface wore the entire movie. The only two in the whole movie that wore the same boots were those two. So right in that scene, I'm like, God damn it, that just gives it away. But hopefully nobody else noticed.
Well, the cell phone thing always.
Oh yeah,
like when the first time I watched the movie, when Billy drops the cell phone,
that too.
I'm like, either this guy's the killer or this is a giant red herring.
I love that technique. I don't know what you guys in the movie business call it. I'm sure there's a thing, but like where he drops the phone, so you instantly think it's him. Then later on, they say no, it was cloned. It wasn't really his phone, and then so now you're off him as the potential suspect,
right?
And then it turns
that's
out
a
later
misdirection. That's what that is.
I love that. That's cool,
right?
Like you said, I thought the same thing.
Not to go. Well, I don't know. Half of y'all haven't seen the last one, so I'm not going to go into it. But in that one, there's a scene like that, and it makes the audience go, "Oh, well, he can't be because this happened." And then at the end, it's like, "Oh, you shady fool!" That guy. So it's a lot of fun to be able to pick up on those things.
I want to throw in one real quick thing about Scream 2. In the same kind of I don't know, immature, like goofy, jolly, happy way that I like seeing Fonzie with the Scream mask on. I like Roseanne's sister as a killer.
Yeah.
Aunt Jackie. Yeah. Although in my mind she's more Artie Lang's mother than Roseanne's sister, because she was his mother in Beer League, which is much more important than Roseanne to me. But I love seeing her as a killer. Okay, back to Scream.
Right.
Sorry.
She is a fantastic actress.
I love her.
And that's the thing. I feel like the Ghostface and the ghost faces in this movie are the best ones that they ever had, of course. And
yeah,
but especially considering how lower quality they got at the end of the original trilogy, I'm not going to go into that. But I mean, unless you guys want to, it's like, because in the third movie, it ended up being like the director of the movie. And it felt.
I don't even remember who it was now in the third movie.
His name was Roman, and he was supposed to be. He had some sort of familial.
Oh, it was the long-haired kid, right?
No,
weren't they watching? Is that when they were watching it in the barn? They had it set up in the barn. They were watching the stab movies or something.
No, that's the
one?
fourth one.
Oh my Lord. Maybe I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe I've blocked out the third one altogether.
Yeah, you probably did. It's the one that takes place almost entirely on a movie set, and it's not good. Jay and Silent Bob shows up, and that makes me happy.
A couple of days to get through.
Jay and Silent Bob show up. How do I not remember that?
Maybe you've never seen it.
No, I've seen it.
Blocked it from his mind.
Yeah,
well,
I think I must.
One of the things I wanted to bring up too about the first movie is the perfect casting that they did for the two killers, at least the two killers, because you've got Skeet Ulrich, who just is one of those people that like you see his face and you're not quite sure if you trust him or not.
The only thing that bothered me about the casting was that so when we got that movie in at the not the theater, what do you call it? The video store I worked at. I took the movie the poster home after we were done with it, whatever. And on the poster, he's got a goatee, and then the movie he doesn't. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that drives me insane. Like, I need consistency.
But then you got Matthew Lillard as Stu, who
so
even
good.
After you find out he's one of the killers,
still love him.
He's still likable. Like you're still kind of pulling.
I love
for
that
him.
guy. Yeah, I love that guy.
Like I kind of want you to
woozy
win.
Here. Oh yeah, my parents are gonna be so mad at me.
You hit me with the phone, you dick.
That line was improv by Matthew Lillard.
What, my parents?
But you hit me
with the
phone?
parents line.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Yeah, and Wes Craven loved it so much that he kept it.
That's awesome. I had no idea. That's funny.
And the thing
really
where
great.
the phones dropped on him, that was done by accident too. But the reaction was so real that Wes Craven's like, "No, I want to keep it."
That's awesome.
That just shows like how brilliant of a director he was.
Yeah.
Right. Oh man, I remember
I love the name,
a story from the making of the movie. Kevin Williamson, the creator and writer of the film, is the he was on set for when they were going to film some of Casey's murder at the beginning of the movie, and he saw the prop Drew Barrymore hanging in the tree with the entrails coming out of her, and he goes and he takes Wes Craven aside and is like, "Hey, don't you think this is a little bit too graphic?" And he says, "Well, you see here on page 15, it says that Casey is hanging from the tree with her entrails out, and I'm just wondering how else you want me to film this." I said, "Fair enough."
That's awesome. There is one little tidbit that I want to bring up, and that Jason and Wally, you'll get a kick out of this. So the party scene that's essentially like the climax of the movie, it runs 42 minutes long.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was shot over the course of 3 weeks.
Wow.
21 straight days.
You guys in the movie business are crazy.
From the time the sun set, and then I'm reading this directly from IMDb, from the time the sun set to the time it rose.
Oh.
After it wrapped, the crew had T-shirts made that read, "I survived scene 118."
We filmed Monsters Anonymous over 3 nights from sundown to sunup. And 3 weeks of that probably would have killed us.
I hope they had days off.
That's crazy.
I would hope so. The cast and crew jokingly called it the longest night in horror film history.
That's amazing. I love the one of my favorite scenes is the Randy's Rules scene in that section or whatever. That's like one of my favorite scenes.
Who did that?
Jamie Kennedy was underrated in that
movie that's right.
Too. Like he was so like obnoxiously annoying.
And I like the fact that that Dewey got stabbed. Louie and Dewey. That's pretty funny.
Dewey and
Louie. I like the fact that he got stabbed in the back, and then in part 2, Jamie Kennedy's like, "What's with your limp, dude? You got stabbed in the back." Because everyone after that happened was like, "How did that happen?" Like everyone in my group was like, "I don't get it. Like, why is he not like what happened? Why is he limping?" And then they actually made it a point to tell the viewer in that little dialogue what happened, which I liked. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, to Jason's point, the cast was so good. And something else I remember, and this is kind of a little inside thing, but they had a big Scream reunion at Pensacon a couple of years ago, and they put the panel for them at the same time as ours.
Yep.
What
They were downstairs and we were upstairs.
And we could hear the crowd roaring over our talking.
I would have, I don't know, I probably would have had to go to the Scream one.
Oh, no, I totally get it.
I wouldn't have blamed you.
No, not at all.
Half of our friends went to the Scream
panel.
I would have.
Panel. We're like, we want to be down at the Scream panel.
I would love to. Who was there from that? Who was there for us?
Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard. Was anybody else there?
Jamie Kennedy was there.
Jamie Kennedy, yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think Rose McGowan was there. Maybe.
I thought she was booked and backed out, and that's why Jamie Kennedy was booked.
You might be right.
That's still awesome.
Yeah.
Either way, it was 3 people from Scream, and it was great.
And yeah, I did get to actually chat with Matthew Lillard because my wife's a huge Scooby-Doo fan, and of course he played Shaggy in the live action movies.
Yeah.
So he, she got an autograph from him, and he was just super.
Wing Commander was terrible.
And I think it's about time we have a Matthew Lillard renaissance where he kind of comes back and does a bunch of movies.
Oh, I thought you were going to say where he comes back as Stu. I'm like, no.
Well, he's already he's doing stuff. He was in he was in a show called Good Girls up until last year.
Yeah,
and then he was in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and he's going to be in the next Five Nights at Freddy's movie as well as the main villain.
Aren't they making a series?
I remember that. I forgot he was in that. I just watched that like a couple months ago.
It is a terrible movie, but he was great. Every second he's on screen, it's wonderful.
He was the only good part mostly of that movie.
But
let me tell you, if you like Five Nights at Freddy's, just go watch Willy's Wonderland. That movie was so much better.
What a name, Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Nicolas Cage, and he doesn't say a single word the whole movie. Literally, not a single word.
I've never seen it, but I know it's available on Plex. I haven't watched it, though. I know that one's on it because I only heard of it a couple months ago, and I just added it.
You just never know what Nicolas Cage is going to do. Like, he did that movie, what was it, Pig?
I never watched that, but I've heard really good things about it.
I have too. And then he does this movie where he doesn't say a single word.
Yeah.
I'm convinced he just goes to set and is like, this is what I feel like doing.
Yeah.
But, talking about Matthew Lillard, I was looking at the trivia here, and it says he was cast as Stu by chance after accompanying his then girlfriend to an unrelated audition taking place elsewhere in the same building. Casting director Lisa Beach saw him in the hallway and asked him to audition for the part, and he got into the role with incredible ferocity.
That's awesome.
I can see that.
I want to know what the other role was there for.
It had to be like there's so many teen movies that came out in that time frame.
Yeah,
and
he was also in Hackers, which came around the same time.
I want to say Hackers was after this.
Was it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Let's see.
You know what? Speaking of Matthew Lillard, that was another thing I thought of today. I never had thought of this before, but everyone left that party. Like they showed him like escorting everyone out of the door or whatever. The only two left in the house were him and Stu and what's her name, right? Because Tatum was already dead. She didn't know that yet, but him, Stu, and Sid were upstairs. Those two were upstairs or whatever. So when Ghostface attacked Billy and the corn syrup thing, same thing. These are Pig's Blood and Carrie. That gave it away to me that it had to be Stu also because
Randy was also there.
Gone. Well, was he still there? But he was.
Yeah, remember at the very end there was another misdirection where he comes out of the field is like, "Give me the gun! Give me the gun! Sid, give me the gun!"
Right. So I forgot about him even being there. So in my mind, Stu was the only one left in the house, so he had to be Ghostface. Plus the height. I mean, that guy's tall. He looks taller than me, at least. I'm only 5'8". So
in the future installments, I think it doesn't matter how tall he is. Once you put on the costume, you supernaturally gain 2 feet. Because there was a couple of people that looked shorter than me.
Maybe the costume actually comes with wooden shoes or green shields or something like that. We don't know about.
Those boots are tall as hell.
I was looking it up. Hackers
shoes
before this. Hackers came out in 95, and then SLC Punk came out afterwards.
SLC Punk was really good. I never saw
Could
the
have been
second
one of
but the
those that
first
he was there
good.
for.
Could have been.
Yeah, maybe so.
Speaking of Brandy. Speaking of Randy, Brandy. One of the things that happened in the video store when I worked there after this movie came out, and I did it as a reference to this, and then we just joked and did it all the time. But I love the scene where Randy's in the video store putting away stuff, and Stu comes up and scares him and knocks all the stuff out of his hand, and he turns around, he's like, "Dork." So that happened once to me, like I don't know, a few months after this movie came out. Like nobody did it to me. I dropped stuff. I was carrying too much and I dropped it, and I yelled "Dork." And my boss AJ was a huge Scream fan, and he was like, Jamie Kennedy, and I'm like, yeah, you got it. So every time I dropped something after that, or anybody in the store dropped something, we would just yell "Dork," even if there was nobody around, just to reference this one scene. So I love this scene so much.
It's one of the cooler in the movie, just because there's all this meta-ness that's involved with it. You know, they go over the rules of what a scary movie, like what happens in a scary movie. Dork. Even the video store scene is kind of meta to me, and I'm a big fan of stuff like that.
I'm a big fan of video
so well
stores.
in this.
I'm a big fan of video stores. I wish they were still.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, we should open us one.
Yeah, you know what? Another one of my favorite lines, at least in that scene. Oh, maybe it wasn't that scene. It might have been the party scene when he refers to Billy as Leatherface. What's Leatherface do? I think it is because they were walking up the stairs at the time when Stu was like, "You guys can go upstairs and do whatever." And they went upstairs, and Randy's like, "What is Leatherface doing here?" I love that line. Just because it's so, because friends of mine in my crew at the time that went to see it, like it was me, my girlfriend time, and like 3 or 4 other people. And they were like, "What's Leatherface?" I'm like, "Bro, are you really? Chainsaw Massacre, dude? Come on, man." And like 3 of my friends had never seen it, so I made them watch it. But I just love that line. What's Leatherface doing here?
One note I want to throw out there, well, 2 actually on the cast. So I saw Scary Movie, which is the spoof of
Before
Scream,
you saw this? Is that what you're going to say?
I saw Scary Movie way before I saw
oh my God.
the original Scream. So whenever I saw David Arquette pop up for the first
Doofy?
time, I actually thought of Doofy instead of Dewey. I remember texting you guys and said, "Effing David Arquette, man."
What's that smell? A woman? What's that smell? My ass. That's the only scene I remember from that movie.
I thought you were about to quote No Holds Barred there for a second.
Dude.
That's the only scene I remember from Scary Movie. My ass.
Yeah. But I do want to say, I actually liked Courtney Cox quite a bit.
Yeah, I love that they named her after the weather, like Gale. They spelled it Gale, which is a storm, or
like she was known for Friends, where she was like this overly nice character, and then she's a total bitch,
right? She's got
in
range.
these movies, so it's like a complete 180.
Yeah, she's got I
thought
range.
She was great,
and I like the line where she's like, "My name is Weathers. I sound like a meteorologist," and then again, her first name is spelled Gale, which is like a rough
Gale
wind
Force
or whatever.
Yeah,
so it fits. I like that a lot.
One of my favorite scenes from the movie is whenever Sydney confronts her about the book, and she just knocks the hell out of her.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that at all the first time I watched it. I'm just,
you know what?
Oh,
I guess so. Another one of my favorite scenes besides that punch one, which I like, and then later on, what's her name is like, "Nice welt, sweetheart," like whatever. A half hour later. I like when Wes Craven's playing Freddy Krueger, Mop as the janitor.
Yes.
And Harvey. I almost said
Harvey.
a really bad name
Shit!
there.
I'm sorry.
Henry Winkler. I got the HW part right, but wow,
he has never been so insulted.
That almost went in a very bad direction. When he was like, "Those little shits," and then he's like, "What did you say?" "Not you, Fred." And then as soon as he said Fred, I'm like, "Oh my God, he's wearing the sweater." Like, I didn't get it at first. I didn't get it. The hat and sweater, I didn't get it. And I didn't recognize it as Wes Craven until like years later. And then when he said Fred, I'm like, "Oh my God," in the theater. I'm like, "Whoa, that's great. It's Freddy Krueger." Like old and retired, but still.
Gotta have a director cameo at some point.
Yep.
Right.
And I will say this too, we're kind of in this age of legacy sequels where, like these old properties are brought back. Mm-hmm. I've actually enjoyed the 2 newest Scream movies. I'm excited that they're going back with Neve Campbell I think Patrick Dempsey's coming back.
Are they?
Well
I didn't even
for
hear
season
that.
7. Yep.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah,
I
Nev
mean,
Campbell. Whenever
it
whenever
wasn't
they fired,
horrible without her, but
yeah, there's still more I
there's
think to
still
tell
something missing.
with Sydney though, because you've got
Yeah.
her kids. She's married now, so
yeah.
I really liked
would-
the most
sorry.
recent one, even without her.
Mhm.
But they mentioned her, they name dropped her, but at the same
Yeah,
time, I was
they- well, they
thinking to
had to.
myself, well, there's no reason for her to show up on this one either, because it
I'd
has
like
very little to do with her.
I'd like. Isn't she like an author, right? Because that was the one.
That was the one before the last one.
Yeah, she was doing like
Yeah.
a book signing. I would like to see Sidney Prescott and Laurie Strode write a book together about their experiences.
Well, Halloween is
internet
a
would
movie that
explode
exists
if
in
that
that
happened.
universe,
One's
so I
the
don't know if that's...
Yeah, I mean, I love that scene too when he pauses it right when Michael Myers has the knife up and Randy pauses it, and it's like foreshadowing.
There's
I also
so many
love-
little nuances like
Yeah,
that.
I also love obviously the name Billy Loomis is Dr.
Mhm,
Loomis, and
Yeah,
I
right.
love the name drop of Wes Carpenter.
Right. I mean, there's and like in the most recent movie, and I'll go ahead and say this one. There's a character. No, the next to last one. I'm sorry. There was a character named Wes in it.
Oh yeah, it was an homage to him. It was that kid.
Right. And he was kind of the male lead of the film.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like these most recent ones too. Like I just literally watched them over the last week. The last 3 of them, because I stopped at 3 because I'm completely upfront. After 3, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, well, they're never going to get any better than this. And I was wrong. 4, 5, and 6 are good movies.
Yeah,
And,
3 is just.
There is a fanciful element to them in that, like I said, once you put on the costume, you gain weight and
Gain
body
weight.
strength. Voice changers don't work like that. Knives are generally not that sharp, and people don't die 3 seconds after being stabbed in the gut.
Yeah.
Just a whole bunch of stuff. You got to be like, just go with me on this.
How much? How many retail sales were there in voice changers that Christmas? A couple days later, after this came out,
After
like
it
everyone's
came out,
scrambling to Walmart to get voice changers.
I remember seeing them, and
Yeah.
honestly, I wonder how many were returned because they don't work like that.
Yeah.
I never heard one that had
Exact
that
same
voice either.
All they did was like modulate the voice. It makes
Right.
you. It makes you
And now
sound
there's
like you're
apps
talking
where
with
you
a
can
voice
actually
box.
do a ghost voice. There's apps where you can do a ghost face voice changer thing, but this is
Right.
25 years later or whatever.
Well, 25 years later, because back then
Yeah.
it was instead of sounding like you're trying to pay homage to this movie, it sounds like you are a cancer patient who lost your
my
voice
Lord.
box. It is not. It is not what you signed up for.
It is not as advertised.
No.
So let me ask you guys this as we start to kind of wrap things up here and put a bow on this. I've loved this discussion, by the way. This has been really fun. Jason, let's start with you. What is the legacy of the original Scream movie?
Oh man, the legacy is every horror movie that's come out since then. Every horror movie's got to have, some kind of twist, some kind of, it's got to have not only horror, but it's got to have humor. It's got to have
You're gonna say
likable
elements.
characters, and just sort of that same aesthetic, I guess you'd say. Because like when you could go back, and if you're listening to this, go listen to our commentary track that we did last year for Nerd Cave Retro
About Scream?
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, I don't.
And,
I gotta hear that.
we're
You were
talking
there!
about-
Was I on it?
It was all 4 of us.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry.
we were talking. We like to make fun of the movie.
I
even though
honestly
we
have
love them.
no memory of that, but I will go back and
Love
listen to it.
And the one thing I remember is like, man, that is the most. That movie is the '90s. Like, it is the most well lit horror movie you will ever see in your life. That movie, but there's a charm and there's a magic about it, and it's kind of like you can feel that DNA and everything that's come afterwards. Like, I feel like if it wasn't for that movie, horror might have died a slow death because it had already pretty much died at that point. And I don't know if anything would have brought it back, or maybe something would have, but that's in a whole different universe that we're not in.
What about you, Wally?
Well, Scream is the rebirth of the genre, and for better or worse, because leading up to it, we were getting stuff like, I don't know if this is before or after, but like studios couldn't figure out what to do with the horror genre because they were releasing stuff like H2O and just really horrible stuff. But then right after this, we ended up with a kind of a huge explosion of these movies that were these smartly written teenagers in the middle of these scenarios, and not just with horror movies. We're talking like this was the 90s was probably the decade of the dialogue. So with Scream, we had Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, we had just all these Joss Whedon, all these people who had this pithy, fast-paced, smart dialogue with young people saying it, and that's how we got movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, and things like that. Not to go too far into all of those, but it's one of those things where it's like you either loved that this happened or you absolutely hated it, and it just kept that ball rolling because studios just weren't making horror movies anymore. And in fact, the highest, the most expensive horror movie of all time happened shortly after, which was Freddy vs. Jason. The highest grossing independent film of all time came out, which happened to be the Blair Witch Project. And it just kept on snowballing to what it is today, where you've got entire streaming services that dedicate themselves only to horror movies. So I think that it was that first snowball in that accumulative effect that brings us to the wonderful state that the horror genre is in today.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. What about you, Joey?
I think I agree with a lot of what Wally said. There weren't a lot of horror movies at the time, and if they were straight to video. I was getting them, like Pinocchio's Revenge. I was getting them at the video store, and I would watch them because I love garbage B movies that are horrible. I mean, I love real movies that are horrible too. Not real, but you know what I mean. But but yeah, I was like, that was another reason why I was so pumped to see this movie, because I'm like, wow, a brand new horror movie that's actually got major stars in it and is not direct to video, where like on the day it comes out, I don't have to put a sticker on it with the barcode and say, please return in 2 days. I can actually go to the theater and watch it while, my day. Like I took the night off to go see this. And again, it was Drew Barrymore, which at the time I thought was going to be the lead. But yeah, and it influenced so much stuff after that. Like like Jay and Wally both said, it influenced so much stuff after that, and it's still like we mentioned earlier. What if this movie came out in 2024? Even with a couple of cast changes, it would still hold up today, I think. I mean, I'd like to see Silent Bob as Ghostface because he doesn't need the voice changer. He doesn't speak, so you would never know who it was. But I mean, then you have like Snoochie Boochie Sydney. Like, oh, I know who that is.
Good Lord.
But yeah, I think in another 10 years we're going to do this again, revisited, or actually in maybe a year and a half, and in the 30th anniversary. And I wonder if they're planning anything for like the 30th anniversary. Like I'm sure the Theater by Me will play it. They do 10, 20, and 30th anniversaries of a bunch of stuff. Probably 40th and 50th too, if I remember. But yeah, anyway, it's still talked about today, and it's almost 30 years old, and there's still a lot of influence from that movie in almost everything, like Jay said, almost everything that's passed since. So again, I love this movie. One of my, I would say this and Halloween the original Halloween are probably my top two favorite horror movies of all time.
And also too, we have to give a shout out to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, because without that we wouldn't have gotten Scream.
Yep.
Yeah,
That is
and by
true.
the way, I just downloaded the Scream episode of Nerd Cave Retro, so I can remember that I did.
Were you drunk? I mean,
I've been hitting the head a lot, man. I mean,
He brings up a good point.
There's a lot of things I don't like. My lack of memory is like I don't want to say legendary, but it's like a theme among every locker room that I'm in. And we're like, a guy will randomly come up to me and go, "Hey, man, remember when we wrestled 20 years ago?" Probably not. And I'm, yeah, I don't even know who you are. I said, here's a really, really quick story. There's an independent wrestler named JT Dunn. He wrestles all over the place. I saw him in a locker room, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe. And he came up to me and he's like, "Hey, Joey Image, how are you, man? Good to see you." And he said, he didn't say who it was. I knew him because we're Twitter friends. And I was like, "Dude, it's good to finally meet you in person. Like, just talking on Twitter all the time." And he goes, "We've shared probably 25 locker rooms together, and we've talked and shook hands and had conversations every time." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I feel so bad, dude." So that shows you my great memory.
On that note, as we wrap up here, Joey, where can everybody find you on the social medias?
Oh, I am on every platform at Joey Image YT. My TikTok seems to be my most popular lately, but Joey Image YT. ProWrestlingTees.com/Joey Image, please. I'm broke and unemployed. Thanks.
Wally, what about you?
You can find me at The Real Big Wall in most places. I'm not on Twitter as much anymore, but you can find me mostly on Threads and Blue Sky. You can actually find my podcast, Ready to Believe You, at what's it called? linktree.com/R2BY, R the number 2, BNY, and it's a paranormal podcast. We talk about Ghostbusters, but we also, what in the world is happening behind me? We talk about Ghostbusters.
Like,
wow, that happened. I swear to God, that just started happening randomly, and I did not make it happen. And as soon as I started talking about ghosts, it happened.
Yeah,
but you guys saw it.
Yes, I just noticed it. Like, I thought maybe it was voice activated.
No, it's not. There's a remote, and the remote's way over there. But
that's pretty funny.
But yeah, it's about the paranormal. Me and Rampage, I am the Rampage, are the hosts, and we talk to people about their hauntings and try to tell them how likely it is that it's a real haunting, or try to explain that's probably not a ghost. And otherwise, we just talk about different stuff. We're going to talk about.
Does anyone ever
today, I think.
Does anyone ever say like, "Well, I first started my hauntings first started when I got married"?
No, actually.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, there is an episode. If you guys want a good entry point, look for the Vivid Hauntings of Maria, I think is the name of the episode, where she describes a haunting that was happening, and then she's like, "Oh, let me call my son who's in Miami who also saw this." Randomly, we call him, and she's like, "Could you tell us about what happened in the hallway?" "Oh, you mean when this happened?" And he describes the exact same thing.
That's crazy.
And only he saw more of it because he was standing behind her. And we're both like, "This is fantastic. My God." So I highly recommend that episode as an entry point if you want to take a listen.
Fantastic. Jason, what about you?
Follow me at JFunktastic everywhere. Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, all that stuff. And go listen to me and Derek over on the Nerd Cave Retro Show, nerdcaveretro.com. We'll take you everywhere you need to go, where every week we talk about retro games. And then once a month, we do an extra show for Patreon, where this month we're going to be talking about killer clowns from outer space for Halloween. So that's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for joining the show. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And if you want to follow this show, you can head over to linktree.com/realwisdompod. That's REEL Wisdom Pod. And we'll see you back here next Thursday for another awesome episode of Real Wisdom with Derek Diamond.